So, hello everyone that is here. My name is Monica. I am a financial aid advisor at the University of Colorado, Denver, and I'm here to talk about the financial aid process with you all today. And so, what we're going to do is we're just going to talk about the different steps and processes that you have to take, regardless of whether you're going to CU Denver or to other schools. And so, we're going to talk about the process today. Okay. It's going too fast. Okay. So, what happens when you apply for financial aid? Usually, you want to start applying for financial aid starting the summer before your senior year of high school. You're going to want to do this so that you can start comparing different colleges that you want to go to. And you can do this by logging on to collegescorecard.ed.gov. And on here, you'll be able to see different kinds of information of the colleges that you want to go to. And then, kind of pick and choose while you're in your senior year. Because what happens is during your senior year, you will apply for financial aid for those colleges that you are interested in. And there's different deadlines that every college has. So that's why it's good to start early and start researching those as soon as you can. And so on here, it does talk about like the admissions and financial aid requirements and deadline. That's why it's important to do the research on your colleges. And then once, you decide that, you will start the financial aid process. And to do the financial aid, you need to complete the free application for federal student aid. And this can be completed on studentaid.gov. If you haven't completed an application before, you'll sign up for an FSA ID, which is a federal student aid ID. And this is pretty much your login to your FAFSA and every loan system and just everything student aid related. And you'll use that to complete the application. And so on here, it does say that the application does open October 1st. So this will be October 1st. Let's say October 1st of 2021 will be for your financial aid starting in the fall of 2022. So it does open up pretty early. And since it's open pretty early, the way that they do it now is you'll have to have your tax information from 2 years prior. So for the 2022 financial aid, when you start in the fall, you'll be using tax information from 2020. So it's 2 years prior. And the reason for this is because they want to make sure that you have your taxes filed, and you should have your taxes filed prior to this because it is 2 years prior. So they make it easier. Before, it was the year before you would file your FAFSA, and there wouldn't be enough time. But now that they've changed it, they're giving people more time to complete their FAFSA, and their taxes should be filed by then. And also during your senior year, it's good to start looking into scholarships. If you become a student at CU Denver, we have a scholarship application, which I will go into a little bit more in detail. Alrighty, so let's get back into the application process. So for applying for financial aid, you're going to want to apply. You can either go to studentaid.gov or fafsa.gov. These will take you to the same application. And so if it's easier for you to remember fafsa.gov, definitely you can go that way. So these are for students who are eligible for federal funding, which are like US citizens or eligible non-citizens. So like if you have like a green card or a permanent resident, things like that, then you can apply. Or if you are not an eligible citizen, or if you are undocumented, you can definitely complete the CASFA, which is the Colorado version of the financial aid application. And what this does is, it allows you to apply for state financial aid. And so you can send this over to the schools that you would like, and then we'll use that application to see what you're eligible for. And so once you complete the application, then if you're coming to CU Denver, you'll have a UCD Access portal that will tell you everything that you need to submit. And it'll say, hey, you need to turn in documentation to verify your household size or to verify the taxes. And so some students will be selected for a process called verification. It happens either by random selection or there's something on your application that just doesn't add up. So you need to submit documentation to show that. And with CU Denver, you do have a to-do list in the portal that will tell you what you need to submit. And for other schools, you will likely have a place to log in to see all of your academics and financial aid things. So you'll be able to see that on their end as well. If not, you'll definitely want to make sure you're keeping in contact with the school that you want to attend. That way you can get your financial aid as soon as possible. And for CU Denver, we do have a priority deadline of April 1st. I think if you're going to start in the fall of 2022, we might change that a little bit earlier to March of 2020. It'll be the March of 2022 is when you'll want to have your FAFSA completed. And that just means that priority deadline is if you're eligible for grants, you'll be considered first come, first serve for those grants. But if you turn in your application a little bit later than that, that doesn't necessarily mean you won't have grants. It just means, that we have a limited amount of funding and we won't be able to guarantee that you'll get those loans. So that's why it's always good to get things done sooner than later. And then once you have submitted all the documents that you are required to submit, you'll get your financial aid award. Some schools offer a planning letter and we are working on offering planning letters for students. So the planning letter is not your financial aid award just yet. It's more of this is what you could be eligible for so that your family and you can start planning on how you want to fund for your education and how much things are going to cost and how much money you will get. So they have that planning letter that are not final numbers, but then you'll get your actual financial aid award once everything is finalized, and you'll see how much money you're actually going to receive from the school. Once you see that, you'll be able to decide how much of that you want, and you can accept what you need in student loans. We'll talk about the different kinds of financial aid here in a little bit, but you can definitely decide on what you need to take out to help pay for your school, because you don't need to take out loans if you don't want to, but that will be an option for you. And so that's generally the main steps. You'll complete your application, work with your school to make sure you're turning in all the documents that we need. Then you'll get your planning letter. Once everything's finalized, you will get your actual financial aid award. From there, you'll just need to determine how much you want to use. So you'll want to also think about how much the school costs that you are wanting to attend and see how much of your financial aid is going to pay for that and how much you might need to still pay out of pocket. And so this is just a little bit of information about the FAFSA. So if you are starting in the fall of 2021, which I'm assuming if you're a senior now, then this is when you would start school. So for this, the FAFSA is currently open and you'll be using your 2019 tax information. And so again, like I was talking about, this is the 2-year prior tax information just because your taxes should already be filed. For CU Denver, if you are starting in the fall of 2021, then our priority deadline for that year is April 1st. So you still have some time to complete your FAFSA now. We are accepting all applications for financial aid and also reviewing verification documents now. So it's definitely important for students to turn in their application as soon as possible, because if you turned in your FAFSA before April 1st and everything is complete by April 1st, so that means if you have documents that you need to turn in, your documents also need to be complete by April 1st. And that means we have to review it and your part is complete. And so it does take some time. So that's why it's good to start early, because let's say you wanted to do your FAFSA the week before April, so the end of March. it usually takes about a week for us to receive your application and to let you know that we have documents that you need to submit. And so if your documents are submitted after that April 1st, then that means, now you're not considered part of that priority. So definitely you want everything in before April 1st. And for other schools that you're attending, you'll want to make sure you see when their priority deadline is so that you can work with them and get your documents in on time, because that if they have a priority deadline, that means they have grants that they have that are first come first serve, which you definitely want to make sure you are receiving, because the grants again are money that you don't have to pay back. So we'll go into that a little bit. Okay, so when you come to CU Denver, this is just how it looks like a little bit. Once you log into your portal, you'll be able to see here, like, for example, when you see FAFSA is received, that means we have your application on file. But if there are other things on here, there might be something that says, hey, this is initiated. When it's initiated, that means you need to turn in the paperwork for that so that we can review your file, or sometimes it will be marked as incomplete. So definitely the to-do list is something really important to keep an eye out on, because it does tell you what you need to complete so that you'll be set for school. Sometimes you'll see other things on here that are not financial aid related, so that's why it's important to check that, because maybe admissions is needing something from you. And so it's good to check this. It's going to be the thing that you want to check all the time, because for CU Denver, students will use their portal to check what they need to submit, and you'll be able to register for classes through there, see your schedule, pay your bill, see your financial aid. So whenever you have access to the student portal at CU Denver or at any school that you are attending, it's important to kind of just explore that and see what kinds of things you can do through your student portal. So now we're going to talk about cost of attendance and the different types of financial aid. And so cost of attendance does sound like, oh, this is how much I have to pay for school. But really what it is, it's just your financial aid budget. So we cannot offer students financial aid more than what their budget is. And so the cost of attendance is made up of two different kinds of costs. So the direct costs, which will be tuition and fees, are what you will be paying like specifically to go to school. So those are the things that you want to take a look at when factoring in how much a school costs. It's the direct cost when you want to see the tuition and fees, because that's how much you will be billed for your tuition fees, and this is how much you actually have to pay. And then you have indirect costs that are also part of the cost of attendance, which is your financial aid budget that is built in so that we can offer you financial aid for these things. So for example, books, housing, transportation, personal expenses, and health insurance is part of that indirect cost that we factor in, because we know that students have books that they need, or they have to pay for housing as a student. So you definitely can get financial aid for that. So usually with those, we see that, like you can fill it up with your student loans. And if you have enough scholarships, you can fill up your financial aid budget with a bunch of scholarships, and that way you could be using your scholarships to be paying for housing and books, things like that. So when you're looking at cost of attendance and you want to know exactly what it is you're going to pay, just make sure you are looking at the tuition and fees of the school. And if you are going to be living on campus, will also be charged into your direct cost. So we have it, the housing on here is an indirect cost. This is for a student who is not going to be living on campus. But if we had them living on campus, it would be a part of their bill. Generally, from what I've seen, it can be anywhere between 11 to, let's say, 13,000 a year for housing. So almost the number that we have there for students who live on the dorms. So if you're going to live on campus, you also want to make sure that you are taking a look at how much the housing is and the dorms are for the school that you want to attend. And so now with this, we did touch on this a little bit. You do get a financial aid planning sheet, which is not really the amount that you are going to receive, but again, just like this is what you could be eligible for. And the reason we give out a planning letter is because sometimes students don't complete their files and, we don't have their documents, but we still want to let them know, hey, this is what you could receive. And it's a planning sheet because if you submit your verification documents, that might change what is on the application, your financial aid application. And that can essentially, change what you're eligible for. So that's why you have a planning sheet and then you get your official financial aid award. For students at CU Denver, we do send them an email letting them know that they have been awarded with financial aid. So another thing that's important is also to check your student email as much as you check your student portal, because that's where a lot of university communications go. So we'll let you know, hey, you have your bill. Hey, tuition is due. Or hey, this is your financial aid award. So definitely it's important to reach out and also to check your email, because we as a university will communicate with the student that way. And it's important too to check that if you are going to another school, it's the main way that schools will get in contact with you. And so definitely it's good to make it a habit to check your email when you become a student. And now we'll talk about the different types of financial aid. So gift aid is financial aid that you do not have to pay back. So these are things like grants and scholarships. At CU Denver, the grants that we have are the Federal Pell Grant, the Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, Colorado Student Grant, University Need Grant, and the Links Grant. So grants, you generally don't have to pay those back, and this is the free money that you want to try to apply for, and that's why it's good to complete your application by April 1st, because with that, once we see that you have your FAFSA on file, we'll check to see what you're eligible for. And so with your financial aid, there is something called the expected family contribution, that what we use to determine what you're eligible for. And so for CU Denver, if you have an EFC of, generally it's between 0 and like almost 6,000, I would say like 5,500, then you will be eligible for the federal Pell Grant and any other grants that we offer. So these are just the grants that we have at CU Denver. And so every school does have different funding that they offer to everyone. So that's why it's important to get your application in. The sooner the better to any schools that you want to go to. That way, you can see, hey, this school is offering me a lot more free money than this school. Then you also want to factor in how much your tuition and fees are going to be at the school. So that's important. And I do also want to touch again on that expected family contribution. From that, it does sound like, oh, your family has to contribute $5,000 for your education. So when you see that, the EFC, it's not necessarily the amount that you have to pay or your family has to contribute for your education. It's just a number that we have to use in financial aid to determine what you're eligible for. So that's another thing to keep in mind when you're completing your application. And then I want to reiterate again the priority deadline of April 1st, 2021 for the fall financial aid. Again, so make sure you're reaching out to the schools that you want to go to, check on that priority deadline and see when theirs are, so you know when to submit your documents. And a different kind of financial aid is self-help aid, which is, sometimes you have to work to earn that, or, student loans that you have to pay back. So you're kind of using this to help yourself, that it's not money that's free necessarily. And so for work study, the way that this is it's something that you can apply for. You can indicate it on your application whether or not you want to use work study funding. But work study funding, generally what it is Usually for CU Denver students, we offer 6,000 for the whole year. You get 3,000 each semester, and you have to find a job on campus to, work for, and then your employer will pay you through your work study funding rather than from their department. So definitely it is something that I would recommend for students. Another good thing with work study is, they're really flexible with students because they know that school comes first, so you cannot work more than 40 hours in a 2 week period. Generally, it's 20 hours a week that you're allowed to work at the most. And, if you have something coming up like an exam or your professor has an extra credit that you want to go to, but it's during your work hours, it's easier to work with your employer to let them know, hey, I do have this school thing that I have to go to. And then they'll be flexible with your schedule and say, okay, that's fine because they know that school comes first. So that's why it's good to do a work study if you are planning on working while you're in school. And another good thing with work study is it's a good way for you to start building your resume while you're in school because once you graduate, you want to have something that you have experience in. So work study is a good way to start building that. And it's flexible. You don't have to work crazy hours or anything like that. And you can work in a field that you're interested in. Like if you are a biology student and are interested in working in a lab, you can definitely do that. Or, if you want to be a tutor one day, you can do that. So there's a lot of different options for work study, and definitely it's a good resource to have. But, sometimes as a first year student, it can be a little bit daunting if you're working and going to school, so you don't necessarily have to do it for your first year. But definitely something to think about in your second year. It's a good resource for you. Another kind of self-help aid are student loans. So these are loans, so you will have to pay them back eventually. You can start paying them as soon as you want. There's no penalty for that, but you are not required to start paying those until 6 months after you graduate or 6 months after you're no longer enrolled at least half-time. So half-time enrollment is 6 credit hours for CU Denver. So you need to be enrolled at least 6 credits to be eligible to use your student loans. And if you have student loans already, then you need to be in 6 credit hours for your loans to stay in deferment. So what it means for your loans to be in deferment is that means you just don't have to pay them back right now because you are still in school. And so that's where that comes in, where you don't have to pay it in 6 months until after you graduate or 6 months after you're no longer enrolled in at least half-time enrollment. So student loans, they're definitely still a good resource because they're a lot better than taking out private student loans, but they're still something that you have to pay back eventually. So you want to keep that in mind if you want to take out student loans. And again, we did talk about work study a little bit. So work study generally is a need-based award. So that means that your expected family contribution is on the lower end and you have enough room for it in your financial aid budget. But we can definitely work with students to see if they are eligible for work study regardless of whether or not they are in a need-based kind of award. So reach out to our office, or you can talk to your financial aid office for whatever school you attend and let them know that you're interested in work study and see what kinds of things that they can do for you. And so with work study, you can find a job on or off campus. It just kind of depends. Off campus is a little bit more, there's a little bit more things that you need to meet. Like it has to be like certain things. It can't just be like, oh, I want to go work at Target and use my work study there. It has to be something that is educationally related. Like if you wanted to work, let's say at a hospital or a nonprofit, things like that. So you wouldn't necessarily be able to do an off-campus job like anywhere. It has to be approved through us first before we can do that. And then since it is a job that you're working, you're going to get paid every 2 weeks and you earn your work study by the hour. And so that's how work study works. And the way that it is paid to you directly as like a check. So you get that. You can either have it mailed to you, or if you have direct deposit, kind of like any other job, you have to work to earn it. The way that your other financial aid works is everything is just going to be dispersed as a lump sum. So some students do get confused about work study and they see, oh, 3,000, why wasn't that applied to my bill? It's because you have to work to earn that, and the rest of it is kind of applied directly to your tuition and fees, except for work study. So work study, you do have to work to earn that. And then with your federal student loans, there are going to be different kinds of loans as well. And so right now we have the direct subsidized loans, which is essentially the better loan out of the loans that you will be offered because the interest does not accrue on your loans while you're in school. And so this is the loan that you will want to take out. The unsubsidized loan is a loan that's offered, and once it's dispersed, the interest will start accruing on that right away. So when you're taking out loans, try to see if you can just stick with the subsidized loans because it definitely is better. But there will be some cases where you have to take out both loans. And it's still good to take out the unsubsidized loan again over like a private student loan because essentially in the end, it's a lot more flexible, like, with having to pay that back and deferment and things like that. Whereas like the private student loans, they need you to start paying that immediately and they're not as lenient, like if you cannot pay that back. So that's why it's good to look into your private or to look into your federal student loans before you look for private student loans. And then another loan that you'll be offered is a direct plus loan, which you'll see more for graduate students, but then also this is going to be offered to your parents. So it's a loan that will be under your parents' name. And that loan usually is offered between anywhere from 10,000 to 20, just depending on your financial aid budget. And it does look like a pretty high number, and it can be daunting to see that amount for a parent. They are absolutely in no way, shape, or form obligated to take out that loan. It's just a loan that they can use to help you with your education. And so, again, they do not have to take out that loan just because it was offered to them. And then their Parent Plus loan is based on credit check. So they have to complete an application for their credit to be run in order to be eligible for the loans. But for your student loans, those are not credit based. They're just given to you and you're eligible for those as long as you're a student enrolled at least half-time in a degree-seeking program. So that's why it's better to have these federal student loans, because with private student loans, sometimes they need to run your credit to see if you're eligible for that. So that's why if you're going to go with loans, definitely take a look at the ones offered through your school with your financial aid first. And so with this here, since we are going based off of taxes 2 years prior to your financial aid application, a lot can happen in 2 years. And 2019 was before, like right now, let's first say, for example, before COVID happened, and everyone had their regular income, and then COVID happened, and we start losing our jobs and our income starts decreasing. Well, if you are experiencing something like this where, hey, our income is a lot lower than it was 2 years ago, what can we do to, reevaluate our financial aid? We definitely can take a look at the current year's financial analysis and see, are you eligible for anything else? Because sometimes, 2019, like you're making a lot of good money and you're making, your income is really high, so your FAFSA is not making you eligible for that free money that usually you would receive if you had lower income. And so we can take a look into that and see if changing the income on your FAFSA would lower your expected family contribution to give you those grants. And so this is an option we have at CU Denver. If you are attending at any other schools, it's definitely good to reach out to them and see if this is an option for you at that school as well, because it will help you to see if you're eligible for any other grants. And it is an appeal, it does take some time, so if you would like to do this, definitely get in touch with them sooner than later. For us, our processing time on this is 6 to 8 weeks. So it is a really long time, and you want to make sure you turn it in well before school starts so they can get that processed for you. And then you'll be able to see whether or not you have grants based on, current tax year information. So now we're going to look at scholarships. These scholarships that I'll talk about are a little bit more based on CU Denver. So when you complete your application at CU Denver, your admissions application, sometimes, you'll be selected for some merit-based scholarships. So they look at your SAT, ACT scores, and your GPA from high school and things like that. You'll be automatically awarded with those if you're eligible for it, and they will notify you if you have those scholarships. So definitely it's good to have those kinds of things when you're applying for admissions through CU Denver. And then we also have our CU Denver Scholar Links application, which is an application that you can use to apply for our internal scholarships. So for the fall of 2021, our application opened October 1st. So October 1st is also the same day that FAFSA opens. So that's the day that you also want to start applying for scholarships every year at CU Denver if you will attend here. And the application is open until March 1st, so that's coming up here in the next month or so. And if you have already been admitted to CU Denver or you've applied to CU Denver, you can access this scholarship database. So if you go to this link here, ucdenver.edu/scholarlinks, that'll be our landing page of, what it takes to apply for scholarships, and then it gives you a link to apply for scholarships. And the way that our scholarship database is set up now is, you'll put in your information, your extracurricular activities, things that you're interested in. And then what it will do is it will filter out your information and say, hey, look at this scholarship. You're eligible for it. Like if you're first generation, you might see a scholarship for that. Or like if you're a biology student, you'll get a notification to apply for those scholarships. So definitely, it's a definitely good resource. And for CU Denver scholarships, they close the applications on March 1st. So it's good for you to complete that application as soon as possible. And then not only do we offer scholarships at CU Denver through that, you'll also be able to apply for external scholarships. So it's a good resource to have. And we have scholarship advisors. If you want to go beyond what we have here, you can talk to them and let them know, hey, I want to look at other scholarships offered outside of this database. What are some good resources for me? So you can schedule an appointment with them, and it'll just be on our website. If you could just Google CU Denver Financial Aid, there's a tab on there for scholarships where you can schedule an appointment, and then you can talk to our scholarship advisors about how to apply for scholarships, or even ask for advice on how do I have a strong scholarship application if you want to apply for other things. They're definitely there to help you with that research. And so for CU Denver, we have our application from October to March 1st. And if you're attending a different school, reach out to them and see when they are going to have their scholarship application open, and if they even have a scholarship application, because some schools do have that, some of them don't. But it's a good idea to reach out and ask all the questions. Asking questions is how you learn everything and see what that school does have to offer for you. So for the scholarship application, for the one that you're going to submit to CU Denver, you will need, like a resume. On here, I talked about like academics, award, community service, extracurricular, and things like that. So you can upload a resume, or you can just put it into the application. And there will be also some scholarships require an essay for you to submit. And with those scholarship essays, you want to stand out as much as you can, and what things you were going through and how you've overcome adversity and things like that. We want to see those kinds of stories because that's what these scholarship committees look for, to see, who is outstanding and who can we offer this money to. And we have the Writing Center and our scholarship advisors who can help you with scholarship essays to make it stronger. Sometimes we'll see an essay that's, like a few sentences long, just answering the question. And, for those scholarships, they're not really going to be selected because you can just tell they didn't put as much effort into it. So there will be like an essay for you to write for all of the scholarships that they can review, but then there will be like more specific ones depending on the scholarship. So you'll want to make sure you're looking through your scholarships and see what kind of requirements there are if you have to do a separate application and things like that. So now we'll move into the eligibility requirements for financial aid. And so this is what I was kind of talking about earlier with your student loans. So most of the financial aid that we offer at CU Denver, students do need to be enrolled at least half-time, which is 6 credit hours. That's just the minimum that you need to be enrolled in to get anything such as grants or loans. But if you want to have the full amount of the grants that you're eligible for, you do need to be enrolled in 12 credit hours. And that just means, full-time enrollment, full-time grants. If you are enrolled in more than 12 credit hours, the grants will not be adjusted, but we can maybe offer more of that Parent Plus loan just depending on how many more credits that you are enrolled in. So definitely it's good to reach out to us and reach out to the school to see if they have additional funding. I know that some schools, if you are enrolled in more credit hours, they might be able to offer you with more funding. So it's good to reach out to them and talk to them about how your financial aid award will be affected if you are, taking 12 credit hours versus 6 credit hours, because that does impact how much you are offered. And again, like I said, if right now, usually we offer students financial aid based on full-time enrollment if you haven't registered for classes yet. That way, students can see, oh, this is the full amount that I will be eligible for. And what we like to do with that is, it gives the students the opportunity to see how much they will fully be offered at CU Denver. But then if you are not planning on being in 12 credit hours, then, we'll have to reduce some of your grants because the grants are based on enrollment. So it's good to do some research on that. And anytime you want to change your classes or, need to drop or add a class, talk to your financial aid office to see how that'll affect your award. And you can still see if, is this going to be enough to cover my balance and tuition and fees and things like that. And as a student moving into university or college, there is this thing called the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA. So what this means is usually when you are in high school, your parents are, kind of there to help answer your questions, and they are contacting your school, asking all the questions for you. But once you are attending a college, they will no longer be able to get that information and contact the school on your behalf, just because they need to have access from you. So you need to give them permission to talk to the school on your behalf. Otherwise, we won't be able to release any information. And I've seen some parents definitely frustrated with this because, hey, I'm paying for their tuition. I should be able to look into their account and what their grades are and things like that. Like, as a student in a university, the parents no longer have access to this information unless the student gives them that authorization. And for you, the student, you can do this through your student portal. And you can say, hey, this is the person I want to talk to the school on my behalf. And, you can choose for them to have access to your academic records, which will be your grades and things like that, or your financial records only. So this means financial aid or your billing. or you can choose them to have access to all of that. So you have the power to see what your parents have access to and what they don't have access to. And what this is with the FERPA, you need to set up a password with your parent. And whenever your parent calls or emails, they'll have to provide that password, and then we'll be able to help them. So for CU Denver, this is set up through the student portal. But if you are going to another school and would like to have this option for your parent to talk to the school, talk to your school and see how you can set that up with them. And this is our contact information here. If you have not been admitted to CU Denver, you might not necessarily be able to make an appointment yet, just because you need to be an active student in the system before you can do that. If you do have questions that you want to ask us before you attend school, you can give us a call here at our number at 303-315-5969, or send us an email at financialaid@ucdenver.edu, and we'd be happy to help you. And then this is the contact information for our scholarship advisors. So definitely it's a good resource. Screenshot this if you want, so you have our contact information. And yeah, if you want to give us a call whenever you have questions, and we'll have many advisors to help you out.
Thank you, Monica. That was amazing. That was very, very detailed. And I know when I was a high school student, I would have really appreciated some of the information that was provided here.
Yeah, I was like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but no, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your time today. And those that are watching, definitely email or call for advice. And then if you have any other questions on the bioengineering empowerment program side, you should have our email, but it's at ucdenver.edu. And if there's anything else you want to add, Monica, I will go ahead and stop recording unless you have something else to add.
Oh, no, I have nothing else to add. That was it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.